Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's event. Thank you for being here tonight for our digital marketing panel. And my name is Cheryl. It looks as if I'm muted, so I'm just going to double check before I go any further to find out if that is the case. Great. I'm finding out from the team that I'm not muted, so I'm going to continue. Again, my name is Cheryl, and I'm with A2IM. Tonight's presentation is a partnership between A2IM and MOME, the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment, and is part of New York Music Month Extended Play. A2IM's initiative, A2IM Artist, was started 1 year ago with the goal of helping independent, self-releasing artists optimize their career. Registration to join A2IM Artist is free. When you register, you'll receive invitations, and hopefully we'll be able to do in real life events. But for now, we have these wonderful virtual events, and you can access them all through A2IM Artist, and you can have access to our A2IM Artist online resource guide. During this panel, I will put the link in the chat so you can join. A2IM Artist is presented by AdRev. Thanks to them, our partners DistroKid, our sponsor Sound Exchange, and to MOME for making tonight's digital marketing panel possible. Our moderator for tonight's event is the owner and publicist of the Press House, Don Kamerling, and features Taylor Flynn from Photo Finish Records and Corey Zaloom from Domino Records. All of our speakers are members of the A2IM community. We are grateful to them for giving of their valuable time and sharing their knowledge. We encourage our attendees to ask questions. Please drop your questions in the chat. We support curiosity and kindness. Please welcome our speakers for tonight's event.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Hi. Hey, Taylor. Hey, Corey. And hi, everybody out there. Thank you guys for all being here. This is really exciting. And I'll introduce myself and say a minute about what I do. And then I'd love Taylor and Corey, you to do that as well. And then I'll start asking you some questions, if that sounds good.
Yeah.
So as Cheryl said, my name is Dawn Kamerling. I am the CEO and founder of the Press House, which is a full-service media relations company. We handle PR mostly in the music space, but we also do culture as well. Company is 20 years old. I started it, and we have an office, and I do air quotes because no one really has an office anymore, but in New York and Nashville and LA. So that's what we do. And we've been working with A2IM for, gosh, I want to say about 4 or 5 years now. So I'm happy to be here. And I've always met the most amazing people through this organization. And I'm meeting you two tonight. So that's great. Taylor, would love you to introduce yourself and just give a minute of who you are and then hand it over to Corey.
Sure, yeah. You guys can hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, yeah.
You can hear me okay too. And Corey,
yeah, great.
Okay. Great. So Taylor, take it away.
I do digital marketing at Photo Finish Records. We are labeled through Kamerling and UMG, and I've been there for about 10 years. I was an intern at Photo Finish, which was like the most amazing experience that I've ever had. And I just grew within the company, and digital marketing was something that I really love to do. And that was maybe about 10 years ago when digital marketing was sort of like becoming a thing. And I just kind of like hopped on the trend, and I was like one of the only people that was, at the label that was really paying attention to it at the time. So I think as I evolved, the industry, the digital marketing industry itself evolved. So I've been there, like I said, for a long time. And I think digital marketing is definitely something that I'm passionate about. So I'm excited to be talking to you guys today about all of that.
Great. Really, really great to have you here. And Corey, you want to take it away?
Yeah, so my name's Corey Zaloom. I look after digital marketing at Domino Recording Company. We're a London-based independent record label. I'm based in Brooklyn, however. Before that, I was at The Orchard, the independent distribution arm of now Sony. And before that, I was in the music startup world. And before that, I was a musician sort of grinding it out, sleeping in the van. So I've sort of been in independent music for over 10 years now.
Cool. That's amazing. So we all have these long history of being women in the music business. Corey, I can't hear you right now again. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you. Great.
Okay, great.
Great. Sorry, I don't know, audio issues. So let's start with the basic question, because I think a lot of people out there are artists that are just really, just wondering what digital marketing is. And I can speak at some point in how that is different from traditional PR, but because this is a digital marketing discussion, let's start with that. So I'd love both of you to speak on that. Corey, why don't you start and then hit it over to Taylor. But what is digital marketing? How would you describe it to the artists watching?
So at this point, I always feel like it's hard to say what isn't digital marketing. To me, if it happens online, it's digital. Does your, local independent record store have a social media presence? Then there's something digital involved there. Are you consuming music through, your phone? That's digital marketing. Pretty much every aspect of the industry at this point somehow is touching on digital. Dawn, I'm sure you can even speak to this more, just as we see, print really kind of migrate almost strictly to digital at this point in most markets. So your classics are going to be your social media presence, your email lists. Those are going to be sort of your core real digital marketing. Tenants, advertising as well is a big part of this, and also how you engage with, Spotify and Apple and all of those, online DSPs where you do consume music. But it's really hard now to say, what isn't digital.
Yeah.
Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, to just kind of go off of what you were saying, Corey, I always say just think of marketing in the traditional sense, but just bring everything to online. So, I know you spoke about print and print magazines, but even press is all online now. So just think of it like that. And I think that's just the easiest way to kind of understand digital marketing. And there are just so many different and fun things that you can do. Other than, in terms of things like that and besides traditional marketing. But I think it's, I think it's everything that you basically can encompass online.
Yeah, and I'll even add to that and say that it used to be very much so that the goal, right, was the big piece of ink in Rolling Stone or the New York Times. But now, actually, if it's not a link that can be generated immediately, it doesn't do anything for SEOs. And so we actually prefer in traditional PR even to have those digital links as well. Yeah, that's interesting. So we know what digital marketing is, and we have that, at least that sort of overview down. This sounds like a very general question, but I'm asking general questions for people who may not really know this. When is the digital marketing most needed, and is it? So let's start there. So is it during when you're releasing a song? Is it all the time? Like what is what's the timing for when? And then I want to talk a little bit about engagement. But first, I want to talk about timing.
I think for me, digital marketing has to be constant. I think, especially doing stuff if you're an artist, you should definitely be on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook. You should have all of those platforms, and you should constantly be updating them, constantly engaging with your fans. But if you're doing something where you're kicking off, a single or an album, there's definitely a sweet spot for us. And I think that we usually start like a month before, 3 weeks before, 2 weeks before, leading up to that. And I think we kind of get, we kind of like really dwindle down as that certain time comes. But I do think digital marketing, it should be happening constantly. And it should be something that you should be doing every single day, whether it's engaging or learning or finding a new platform that you think you might be on or you might, do well on.
I'll ask you this, Corey, because I think this is just a question I'm curious about in the marketing space. How much does ad buying matter? I mean, like boosting posts and, things like that versus, organic engagement. And then we can talk a little more about engagement. But Corey, I'd love you to speak to that part of it. How much, when you actually like the spend, does it make a difference?
Yeah, I'm a pretty big proponent of digital advertising. I think it is really important. And I don't say that as to say like, oh, you need to spend a lot of money. Oh, you need a really big budget. But I think it's always important to consider what you're up against on social platforms. You're up against everybody's friends who are, posting content that they're really there to see first and foremost. You're up against competing with other brands that are on there, all those different accounts, plus the, algorithms sort of determining and trying to guess what people really want to see and engage with. So when you have really good engaging content on its own, you're going to rise to the top a bit easier, but you still do have these other things to compete with. So I think, doing, little boosts on your posts, getting used to that sort of can help you kind of, one, get in front of new people, and two, can sort of just help you get past some of those hurdles that can be in your way a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I do think it's important to consider, and that can be as simple as, spending $5 on, a post about a new single to make sure that everyone that does follow you gets to see it at least.
Got it. And so I have two questions, and I just to sort of continue on this a little more. Can you speak to the difference between digital marketing and social media, or is there a difference? I guess, Taylor, you want to take that one?
Sure. I think digital marketing encompasses way more than social media marketing does. So digital marketing can also be digital press. It can also be influencer marketing. It can also be ads. I think for social media, I think that's more or less content and engagement and updating and really like honing in on those platforms. But I think digital just encompasses everything that we're talking about online.
Got it. And here's a question that I have. I find that I work with so many artists. I'm friends with so many artists, musicians. I mean, same thing in my mind. That really feel like, how can they get anything to stick? I mean, like they put out a song and they work so hard on it, and it's like a whisper in a hurricane. It's so noisy out there, and it's so disappointing for so many artists that I work with and I know, even when there's a team and there's a budget. So is that because they need to engage more? What would you tell artists that are watching this that are like, how can I get above the sort of riffraff of just it being such a crowded world? And maybe there's no answer to that, but Corey, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think the first thing is patience is really important. It's very easy to feel like things aren't working because there isn't sort of this big, overwhelming, very clear sign. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important to just sort of, pay attention to your metrics, look at your engagement numbers, keep an eye on your followers, see like, are you getting, a few more likes or a few more shares on every post? Are you growing your followers by, 10% every few months? Like that is growth and that is meaningful. It can take time. And I think meaningful growth that matters is slower than big numbers that feel nice, but might just not really mean much and don't really stick. And you can have like really nice follower accounts and have really low engagement. And you can have what might feel like a low follower account and have amazing engagement. I'd rather have amazing engagement amongst a smaller group of people because I know that they're at least responding, even if I feel like I'm not cutting through this big group of people.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Taylor. Sorry.
No, I was just going to add on to that really quickly is, I also think you really have to understand who your audience is. Oh, and I think really like tapping into that and really kind of getting to the bottom of it and kind of saying like, okay, who am I really appealing to? Mm-hmm. And there's times where we need to make content that appeal to that specific audience. And I think that's very important as well.
Got it. And so I love that. And I'm actually really interested in learning all of this stuff because I think that that sort of that focused world of digital marketing is such a lane that so many people are still trying to figure out. Here's a question for you that I think a lot of people would love to understand. What is engaging? So you always hear digital marketing people say this. I know the answer, but I feel like so many artists don't know the difference between posting and sort of being on social media and actually engaging with the space. So I'd love you both to actually take a minute and give your expertise on what engaging is. And Corey, you want to go first and then Taylor?
Yeah. Most basic, I mean, you can look at, likes, comments, that's your most basic engagement, but things that I also look at, a lot of times I look at the percentage of video content that's viewed as an important one to me. Cause that really says like, are people stopping and watching? Looking at, particularly on Facebook, like the sound on watch metric, which is really important, in the music space, obviously, because we're seeing, okay, the video is playing, but maybe it's in the background. But if I see a lot of people turning the sound on, I say like, okay, they're interested in this. Trying to think what other, shares are obviously. Sorry, Taylor, go.
No,
Yeah.
I was going to say no. Yeah, I mean, like for me, like that's a big thing too. I always look to see who are saving posts, but I also think that once you, as an artist, I think once you post something, you have to stay on that app and you have to keep engaging with your audience. So if people are commenting, you have to comment back. You should be putting hashtags in all of your posts. I know like sometimes they look messy and you don't want to do it, but like you have to do it. Those things just help so much. You should be adding to your stories every single day, add to your Instagram stories. You have to do things like that. Even if it's on Facebook, uploading a video, if you're on TikTok, engaging, you want to Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, they want to keep people on that app. So if you're liking something, if you're commenting something, a person might see that notification and then they'll go back into that app, and Instagram or TikTok will reward you and move you up in that algorithm. So stay there. Make sure like you're also commenting on things that you might interest you. It might have nothing to do with your music, but comment on other people's posts and just so that people can kind of see you, see your name, and that's it. I mean, like I always say, we live in like a comments by celebs world. And I just like follow that Instagram account so much. And basically it's just celebs commenting. And I think people just want to see that. People just want to learn who you are. And I think engaging is really a great way to do that.
That's great advice. So let's do this for everybody that's really new to digital marketing. What are the sites that people should for sure be on? We know about obviously Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, but are there more sites? Maybe let's talk about TikTok a little bit, but first let's list sort of where we should be if we're, interested in digital marketing.
I mean, for me, I think TikTok is a huge one, and that's like its own monster and own beast in itself, just because it is what it is. But I think it also depends on who you are. Are you a Twitch streamer? Are you a gamer? Should you be on Twitch? It's things like that. Should you be on Snapchat? I mean, I tend to think that, does your music appeal to maybe a younger Gen Z audience? Then you should be on Snapchat. I think those are the things that you have to kind of look at. And I think that, now we live in a world where almost everything can be looked at as a platform. And I think it's just important to finding out what your likes are and who you are, and that's where you should be. But I absolutely think that like TikTok is absolutely necessary in this day and age. So I think that's definitely something where it's like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok.
I want to talk a little more about TikTok, but I think we're getting an important question, which is where can you see the sound on metric? Is that that's Elizabeth Cleveland chiming in from the chat. Is that just on Facebook?
Yeah, so on Facebook, you can see it on your video posts when you go to view your post insights. And then you can see it if you are running advertising on Instagram. You can't see it for organic posts on Instagram right now, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, good to know.
Yep.
Okay. I have another question for you guys. So let's talk about TikTok a little bit. TikTok is, in my world, I'm hearing TikTok is like the way that you discover music now. That's what labels are looking at, A&R people. Do you feel like TikTok, do you feel like musicians should be, how do you feel musicians should be using TikTok? Like I've heard people say that, musicians shouldn't be just posting their music, that, it's like, because people buy, right? They buy this sort of creators. And I actually do PR for a lot of these creators. So I know for sure, the songs you're hearing, a lot of them are paid placements. But so what if you're a musician? How do you do it? Should you be really just doing something other than music on TikTok? Or how would you say, because it has to be organic or else people know it's not, it's not really you. So I'd love to hear both of you talk about that.
Yeah, I think we're going to look back on TikTok in, 6 months to a year and questioning if you should at least be trying to use TikTok is going to sound as silly as questioning if you should be using Instagram right now. Yeah, I think people are looking for more organic content. I think every artist should sort of set up their account, get their name held so that you have your handle and everything. You can post your music video clips if you want. You're not going to thrive on TikTok just doing that. I think if you're engaging with platform trends, that's going to perform the best. You're going to have the best chances of making it onto people's For You pages. That's the feed that you see when you first open the app. And then that's sort of where you balance it with the music content, sort of in the same way that you might use your Instagram stories, even where, hopefully you're not just putting out marketing content over and over and over again. You're showing personality, you're sharing maybe other uses of your music through TikTok or through Reels onto your Instagram, or sharing posts from your fans. You're showing things that go beyond just the music that you're creating. And then you can also use TikTok to show your process, show yourself in the studio, show what it was like to work on your art, for your album cover. There's all these little lanes that you can sort of get into to create content that shows who you are as an artist, which is who you are as a person. That isn't just marketing content over and over and over again, because it's just not going to thrive on TikTok. It just doesn't really work in that ecosystem.
Yeah. I mean, I always tell my artists, they're always very hesitant. They're always like, oh, TikTok, I can't believe I have to do this now, because it's very intimidating. But I always say, take a week and go on the app and enjoy the app, because there's so much on there besides music. There's recipes, there's movies, there's so many different subgenres, so many sub communities on there. Really get a feel for the app, enjoy the app, and then just kind of come back to it. And, we had a few artists that it was basically trial and error, where it was like, okay, they were posting things and it really wasn't working. And then they kind of found their niche in it. And, they started posting collab videos and videos on how they make certain beats. And that kind of became who they were on the app. And that's okay. And I think just trial and errors were a really big thing. And that's okay if it's not working. Just try to find a different lane. But like Corey said, there's just so much on there. And there's definitely a lane where you can kind of fit into. So I think that it's very intimidating at first, but try to get comfortable on it and get a feel for it.
Yeah, I think people I think people really got pigeonholed into what TikTok was when it launched, as it's 15-year-olds doing dances, lip syncing to pop songs. And it's really not. I ended up in a wormhole of synth talk where it was just all synthesizer TikTok, and there's millions of views on these videos. It's this whole community. And once you get into that algorithm, you're going to keep getting that in your feed. So there's people who are strictly sitting on TikTok consuming synth talk videos. And if you're making any sort of electronic music, for example, you can fit in there really well. And you probably aren't going to have to do anything that's outside of your comfort zone either.
I think that's great feedback. And I'd love to ask, Zarin has a question that I think is a really good one, which is, and they're all good. I don't mean that. I'm just pulling them out. Have you seen artists who've grown successfully using more of a Twitter-focused strategy versus the TikTok strategy? Is it possible to do a similar thing, but in more of a different lane, like Twitter?
I think you can. I think Twitter is more for conversation. I always say a one-liner type of thing. I have an artist on there who does very well, and he hardly talks about his music. He talks about, funny things, relevant things, his day. I kind of think I think that's what TikTok, what Twitter is really now. It's just more of a news media. You have these little lines of what's going on in the world. You don't really want to sit there and consume a long form video. But yes, I think you can do it. I think it's a great way to show your personality and who you are. So I think that definitely there's a lane for that, for sure.
That's great. Another question I think is a great one to ask is, and Elizabeth is asking this, and I think it opens a bigger question, which is, what are the demographics of the difference between Twitter versus Instagram versus TikTok, even versus Snapchat? Is there a different audience you're talking to, or are they really the same because it's you engaging?
Yeah, Snapchat and TikTok, you're definitely going to see skew much younger overall, very Gen Z. TikTok already, I think that's changing. There's a lot of dunking on millennials happening already on TikTok. So it's I think the base has really grown, particularly since COVID and people are home on their phones way more. But you'll just see younger, by far, Snapchat in particular is sort of just thrives with, high school students who don't want to be on the apps that their parents are on. Whereas Facebook and Twitter, you will see a much wider to older demographic. I think Instagram is sort of the closest that you could get to saying everyone's on it, whatever that really ends up meaning. But I think you can find anyone sort of on Instagram.
Got it. Okay. That's so interesting. Yeah. And I guess let's talk a little bit about genres. There's so many different, brilliant music genres that, we can all access now globally because of, digital marketing and these platforms. Do you think that that genres make you skew differently? Should you be thinking about your digital marketing based on your genre? Should you be thinking about it based on your the personality of yourself versus your music? How much of yourself should be in that? Speak to that a little bit if you can.
I mean, I think, yes, you should definitely consider your genre, but I definitely don't think you should discount who you are and your personality. Also, your age. I think that's also a big thing as well. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't discount anything else. I don't think it just has to do with genre at all. Right. But just kind of going back to what Corey was saying about TikTok, and she was on synth talk. If you're in the jazz genre, you can find a jazz, genre on TikTok, and you might find musicians as young as 15, 16, 17, 18. I think that is one of the greatest things I think about TikTok is that it really is such a big, huge place of everybody just doing so many different things. So I think that that's something that you just kind of can't really discount with that.
Yeah. And I would also add to that too. I think that from a PR standpoint, and it doesn't matter if you're talking in traditional PR or digital PR, because ultimately, to Taylor's point, they're really the same thing at this point, right? It's just media. I would say that it's always really important to have an authentic human interest story, in addition to the music that you're putting out, because people do want to fall in love with the person. And I say this, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, I really feel like we're in the culture of, the American Idol, where we want to root for the underdog, and you want to know why the person is, why they're there, right? Why they're singing that song, how they got there. So I really think that it's just to add to this conversation, it's less about the genre of music and more about the who and the why. So I strongly recommend all the people watching this and listening to have a good bio and really make sure that you have a clear, message on who that is and who you are. Here's another question. I'll let Corey take this one. What skills do you recommend for an aspiring digital marketer learner? How do you stay up to date on it? And if you wanted a career in this, how do you do it?
Yeah, so basic stuff. There are resources on Facebook. It's called Blueprint that I think anybody can access, where they have little courses that you can do, which can be helpful for learning some new skills there. Looking for, webinars and online classes can help for sure. But I think honestly, the best thing to do is look at yourself as, particularly again on social media, not to just stick on it, but let's say email too. Look at the content that you consume, look at the artists that you aspire to be like and enjoy, and try to see what do they all have in common? What about that do you like? What emails do you notice? What social media posts do you notice? What ads do you not hate? What do your favorite artists do that you really connect with when it comes to the online space? Because really the best things you can learn from are the things that are already succeeding and the careers that you want to emulate.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. I read Tech Meme every day, and it's just a blog just about like tech stuff, and it has a lot of social media and digital marketing components to it as well. But that's really helpful. And I read Social Media Today. That just kind of helps me stay on top. And like Corey said, I love to see what other artists are doing. Like that's just the biggest thing. I follow artists on Instagram that are just doing really cool things. And I think that's one of the biggest ways that you can learn. And it just, and like for me and, you know, from photo finish, just from that standpoint is that we always kind of think of digital marketing as like, you know, there are no boundaries. Like, what can you think about? What do you want to do? And what do you want to accomplish? Like, let's try to figure out a way to get there. I think just because it's always changing. And I think that's the fun part about digital marketing.
Yeah, I think that's such great advice. And I think that speaks to a little bit about a couple questions that are coming in, all about the sort of how we work in this short form space and create the ability to make a long-term career and also tell a longer story. Like, for instance, how do you create a human interest story when you're in these short form things? The first thing I'll say to that, just as a publicist, is you just always link to something longer once you engage people and get their attention. But I'd love to hear from you both about how you take the sort of 30-second video or whatever that longer thing. And also then how does that work over a long period of time with a career? How do we see this? I mean, I guess that's a very sort of tough question, but just riff on it for a minute.
I mean, one thing. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. No.
I was just going to say one thing that I thought it was really cool. And Lil Nas X is doing this right now on TikTok, and he's telling his story, like his life story, through a series of TikTok. Yeah, like through a TikTok series, basically. And I forget how many videos he has out now. It's maybe like 10 of them. And people are just kind of like, hey, like they want more and they want more. And I thought it was really clever. He's doing one, I think, almost like every other day. And he's just telling his story. And even though it's only 15 seconds, 30 seconds, that's something that you can keep compiling and keep doing like, hey, like this is a series that I'm doing, or this is a YouTube short series that I'm doing. I'm doing, 1 minute videos every, once a week or anything like that. And I think doing that and refreshing the algorithm and triggering the algorithm and you're keep putting out fresh content, I think that's a great way to tell your story. You don't have to tell it all in one shot. It can be something that, is over a period of time.
Yeah. Corey?
Yeah, I love a series so much because what you can do is you take a piece of longer form content and you break it down into, depending on the format, 15 to 60-second bits into these little episodes, and people can follow along. People might miss one, but they'll see others. And you have a span of content that you can work with over a longer period of time. So you're able to stay consistent and keep active. And then you put your longer form piece on YouTube. So you're driving people there as well who are more engaged, who do want to, there's that word again, who do want to sit and watch, will commit into watching a longer video. I mean, a lot of this stuff, it seems like it's digital marketing lives in this special world, but it's all like a classic marketing funnel, right? You want to move people the broader part from the top, and you want to move people down, which involves just getting them ready to commit more. And sometimes that commitment is lots of little videos until they're ready to watch the full 10-minute piece on your life story. But you're still sort of working through that process. I think when it comes to long-term careers, I don't think there's anything about digital marketing that hinders someone from working towards that. Digital marketing really, in the end, is just you're putting yourself in a place and making yourself known through ways that are considered the cultural norms of how people are consuming content now. That's really all it is. This is what people do. This is where they go to learn about music, to follow celebrities, to discover new visual art. This is where everything happens. And you're just being present there as well, because that's where we're at. And in 5 to 15 years, it'll be something different. And if you want to sustain your career, you shift towards that when the time comes. But it's just sort of about staying on top of what is happening right now.
I think that's so smart. And I have to say too, like I find that both of what you said is very well said. As a publicist in that space, I think that the biggest challenge that artists that I work with face is really, it used to be, right, that you would get a piece of media and it would have a lasting impression. Now, because we're in this space where things are shifting so fast and we're just consuming our media, mostly from our phones, right, or our computers, our big screen, our medium-sized screen, and our little screen. You find that it's so you'll get the hit of media, but then sort of what happens, right? So how do you sustain that? And so I tell the people I work with, my clients, whether they're companies or whether they're people, to have another thing coming right up after that, because we're moving in a faster pace. And I think that's, so we just have to be moving in faster paces. I think I'd love to hear your take on this, but I think that the idea that what you said, Corey, like digital marketing is this thing, that's this box we have to stay in, when really it's just a place that creatives can be creative. I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit. And I'd love if you can, if you both have examples in your own work where you have felt success in a campaign, or you've used your sort of creative hat more than even your business hat, if you want to talk a little bit about that stuff. Taylor, you want to start?
Sure. I mean, early on with Photo Finish, we were really bullish on influencer marketing, which obviously is like this whole world now, and it's crazy. But I think that is something that is just, it can't be discounted. That's something that I think people need to embrace. And I understand sometimes it can get super, it can get pricey. So, I mean, there are a lot of different ways and a lot of different things that we've done. We've done trades off with people, where I think that that's really important, where it's kind of like, hey, like, we'll post this if you post this for us, and you kind of trade it off and you collaborate. There's also another thing that, Photo Finish, we own all of our masters. So we embrace YouTube and the YouTube community like crazy. So we'll go to genre channels, we'll go to influencers and say like, hey, I know that you really can't use music a lot, but we use our song, like use it. And here it is, like you can use it for free. And it worked. And like, there are so many times where we've seen like spikes and different on Spotify, and just from different streaming territories where it all started on YouTube. And I think that's something that if you do own your master and your copyright, those are things that you have to understand, that you own your music. You can do whatever you want with it at the end of the day. And I think just doing things like that and reaching out, I, till this day, reach out to people with a cold email and kind of say, this is what I'm doing. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just find their email on the YouTube channel. I think that's something that I think you should definitely embrace. And even like on the Twitch side of things, Twitch is like a whole other platform and something else, but we do own our masters. So that was something that we were kind of like, hey, let's ingest all of our music onto Twitch, and we're in the process of doing that now. So I think just kind of understanding that you own a lot of your music, and just kind of reading all of these different things, like immerse yourself into digital marketing and kind of understand like, hey, like there's nothing wrong with me hitting somebody up and collaborating with them and doing a trade. We do it all the time.
Yeah. Corey, do you want to hit that?
Yeah, I think, collaborations are amazing. Trade remixes with somebody, anytime you can tap into someone's audience that already exists that, might be similar to an audience that'll be interested in your music, see what you can do there. If you find someone on TikTok who used your track, even if you have 2 whole videos up there that use the track, find that person, reach out to them, send them a t-shirt, send them a record. Do those things that are going to really convert people into being your own evangelists. My favorite thing really is when I see artists just get really comfortable using social media, because I think there's just this block that it's this big scary thing. And I've seen it, throughout the pandemic, because so many artists have kind of been forced to reckon with this, I think. Just getting comfortable, just being themselves, figuring out what their voice is, figuring out what all their visuals are going to look like, really figuring out how to not, sit there and like really become, professional graphic designers and video editors, but learning how to kind of create their own visual identity kind of simply in a way so that things look really nice. I love seeing that, because I also feel like I'm seeing them. I'm not seeing like this very nervous marketing identity that they don't want to take on at all to begin with. I'm just seeing them as a person, and that informs who they are as an artist.
No, that's so smart. Yeah, very, very insightful. And I think that's so important that the person comes through. One of the questions we're getting is what is the role of a publicist in the digital marketing world? So my job as a publicist is to work in whatever world we're in. And my job as a publicist and any publicist is to get press, right? So, and sometimes, well, first it's to create a story and to create the message that's going out and to create strategy, a PR strategy timeline. And most of the time, if there's a person running digital media or social media, we would do that stuff together, come up with what's best. But then our job as a PR person is really to get media. That media could be on digital sites, like sites that are specific to what digital marketing people work with, or they could be traditional media, which is print, radio, TV, podcasts, but also print media that has websites. Everything has website, right? So NewYorkTimes.com, stuff like that. So publicists really stay in the lane of placing media. And media is a lot of different things. I will say, though, that one of my jobs as a publicist is to also look when PR is changing. And part of what my job is as a publicist is to get influencers to talk about the music, to share it. So very often I'm working with the digital marketing people at labels to say, hey, Taylor, check this artist out that I'm working. Do you have anybody that you think would be a good fit for this? So I just wanted to sort of offer that out. I'll ask you guys a question. So talk to artists about if they have all these social channels, like, should they still have a website, and should they be trying to funnel stuff to the website, or should they have their own platforms, or should they really live on socials? Maybe speak to that a little bit.
Definitely have a website. You want to have a place that you own, that you control, that when people go and search your name on Google, because that's what everybody does, that they end up on your site. You want to be able to put whatever links that you want can be there, and you get to decide what those are. You get to decide what it looks like. And, no one's going to decide that your website isn't a thing that exists anymore. Whereas, the risk with social media, obviously, is one day it can all go away. If anyone here remembers the old, what was it, ban page on Facebook, when that was the most important thing I feel like you could have, almost 10 years ago now. And now Facebook just changed what profiles look like, and they were gone. That's it, just gone. Right. So you want to have something you just fully can control. And it doesn't need to be something fancy or complicated whatsoever. It can be really simple, but you want just like your own little home on the web.
Mm-hmm. Taylor, do you have anything about that, or you agree?
No, I totally agree. And just like Corey was saying, like it just can be as simple as a splash page.
Got it. Here's a question I have for you. Can you both comment on something that you've seen in this space? We've all been in this world for bazillions of years, right? We're a little bit dinosaurs in this industry. What doesn't work? Let's talk about what we know doesn't work. I can say, here's what doesn't work for me is when I get a link to somebody saying, I'm an artist, please help me. And I can't even click on the link because it goes to a thing that I have to down, it's not accessible. But I'd love for you guys, just from a digital marketing point of view with an artist that you've worked with or that you've seen, what does not work in this space?
So in terms of like just being like on socials, or just in terms of, I think that there's like just a lot of different things. Like, for example, like if our artists are on social media and they're just not their authentic selves, like I can tell and everybody else knows. And it's like, you can tell, like, this is not you. Like, you just have to be comfortable. And like, what Corey was saying is that she kind of gets that like sigh of relief when she feels like, oh, my artist they are who they are. And I think that that is one of the most important things that you can embrace, especially now, I think with Gen Z. Gen Z is very open, and that's what they embrace. They embrace who they are, and they don't apologize for that. And I think that that's something that you should as well. Be comfortable, be who you are, be open. Like, people want to see you as a friend. And I think that's something. You don't want to have that barrier, like, oh, I'm a fan, you're you're this huge star. I think that's what social media takes away. It takes away that barrier, and they want people to feel like, oh, I'm your friend.
Yeah.
Even more basic, don't buy followers If someone is promising you X amount of plays and guaranteed spots on Spotify playlists, it's probably not real. Don't spend your money on it. I'd be wary of anything where you're sort of paying for some kind of guaranteed presence or engagement, because, things like that, most of the time they're not really legitimate. And even if you see all those followers, people like Taylor and I can tell, like we can see when followers are bought. So you're really not going to accomplish anything. And it goes back to that engagement word again of, if you have 1 million followers, but none of them are actually looking at or engaging with your content, it doesn't really matter.
Right. And so, what Corey said earlier was, I'd rather have more engaged followers than more followers. And it's so true. Like, I'd rather take somebody who has 20,000 fans on Instagram and their engagement is 10% over somebody who has 1 million with 2% engagement. Like, you really do want that following. So don't get, so caught up sometimes in the numbers.
I think that's such a great point. And I think that the takeaway for this that I'm really hearing and also just feeling is authenticity, like really organically showing up as yourself on these platforms. It's your content being very who you are. And it's your engagement and your followers and fans being who you are. And that's really the key over anything else. Here's a question. How much do you think that musicians should be doing their music versus just cooking or doing whatever, right? Like walking their dog. Like I always, a lot of the creators I work with are Gen Z, and they really hardly play their music they just like show up and they're like, ah. I mean, how often would you say what's the sort of ratio, if there is any, or is it just really about authenticity?
I think it depends on the creator and the person, to be honest with you. And you should just kind of see what works and what you feel comfortable with. If there's a nice way where you can have a mix of both, that would be great. I think it just depends on who you are. And there's really no right or wrong answer to that, just as long as you kind of always check your numbers after you post and kind of see what's working versus what's not working.
Great.
It's different for every artist. I mean, you look at, say, Phoebe Bridgers' Twitter, and most of it's not about her music. It's just really witty, culturally relevant. I think if you want to talk about like music as a culture, as a lifestyle, it's relevant to that community, but it's a lot of content that's not about her music, but it works because it's her and people like that. So it's about finding a balance that feels right for you and your fan base. And there's going to be some trial and error, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that somebody once said that it should be like a third about what you're doing, a third about what you like, and then a third about sort of tweeting or posting what you like out there. So that makes sense. Well, I think we have about 9 minutes left. So I am going to just see if there's any other questions that anybody else wants to ask. Let's see. Here's a good question. How often? What's the best, algorithm for posting? Like, is there 2 to 3 times a day? Things like that. Oh yeah, there's the question right there.
Oh. I think it's important if you're on Instagram, I think posting the stories once all the time throughout the day, I think is totally fine. I think posting to feed is maybe, it depends on you. I think 2 to 3 times a week is fine. I feel like sometimes when you post too much to feed, I feel like people get annoyed and they unfollow. It's very weird. But TikTok is also something that I think is, that could be something that's maybe 2 times a week. I know that if you're on TikTok and you post and you get really good engagement and then you don't post for a long time, it's like starting from zero again.
Okay.
So I know that their algorithm kind of resets. YouTube, also another big thing on the YouTube front is they have a community tab for artists who are eligible for that. And that's something that you can just kind of talk to your fans with. And they really weigh that in their algorithm, and they love when artists use the community tab. So I think that's really important. For Facebook, I think it can kind of be as needed. We tend to use our Facebook more as like newsworthy posts. We run a lot of ads on Facebook. And then Twitter can be daily. Just depends on your presence there.
Great. I am going to ask the final question, which is, what are the top three tips that, or takeaways an artist can have to, improve their digital presence?
Ooh, top three.
I know.
Top three.
I think one of the things that you definitely should do is get comfortable on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Get comfortable on all of those apps, even if that means taking a week for each and just kind of putting yourself into that and really finding out where you fit in on each of those things. And it's okay. It doesn't have to be something that you'll find overnight. Just figure that out. And then another thing I think is just really, really engage with your audience. That is going to help you so much in the long term, whether it's through comments or likes. And I know Corey mentioned something before, even DMing people and saying like, hey, thank you so much. Here's a t-shirt. Those things go such a long way. I also think just continue to educate yourself, continue to read, and continue to see what other people are doing. I even Tash Sultana did this really cool thing with Fortnite this morning. And I was like, that was brilliant. I want to do that. Like, I even do those things. So there's nothing wrong with that. Just kind of immerse yourself into the world and don't get intimidated. Like, we all know it's changing for everybody. Just really take your time and just try to understand it.
Yeah, I would say be active in being a user and being a fan. And when you're feeling overwhelmed or when you feel like you don't know what to do or how this all works or what the best way to do things are, just look at the stuff that's really resonating with you, because you're probably a music fan first and foremost. You were a music fan before you were an artist too. And you can see what works if you just kind of stop and take a second and go, okay, I can see what works. It's in front of me. I just have to kind of look at it, analyze it a little bit, think about it, and see, where do I fit there? What can I do that's similar? My favorite artist is always showing me what they're cooking. And I really like that because I like to cook too. Maybe I can just try to work in some of that content in there because that's who I am also. Or I love the little 15-second snippets of stems that this one artist shows in their stories, because I love hearing, how a track got made. Let me share some of my stems that way too, and people can kind of see into my process a little bit. There's your whole, content strategy for a little bit. These examples, they're all in front of you if you just kind of stop and pause and look.
And one last thing, don't be afraid to cover songs and post them. I think that's such a great way. Our artists do that a lot, a great way to engage with,
That's a great point. Yeah. I also want to say one thing for my little tip, I'll just add this in, is we're in such a crazy world with, and this goes to your question, Walter, we're in such a crazy world of really COVID, right? So no one's connecting in person. You're not going to a party to meet you're not seeing live music. I think reach out, email the person, say, I loved what you said earlier about DMs, but I also think I find that I make relationships by just doing that. I say, hey, journalist A, I loved your article, or hey, marketing person, we should collaborate. Or, if you're wondering, if you want to talk to a publicist or a marketing person, drop them an email and just say, hey, I'd love to pick your brain for 15 minutes. They may not write you back, right? But do it. And I say that because I write people back, and I reach out to a lot of people. And in fact, some of the greatest people I've met this year, I would say that I met because I wasn't out engaged in the events that we're putting on or throwing, and I'm behind my screen. So I really think this is not to be afraid to put your content out there. I love the idea of covering other songs, being your authentic self, but also really connecting with people as best as you can through those platforms. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's it. It's Cheryl, are you coming back on to finish out?
Thank you all so very much. I learned so much from you all. Some of the takeaways that I have, in addition to the ones that you just shared, I love the concept of serializing your content that you mentioned Lil Nas X is doing, and the idea that Corey mentioned about collaborating. And I think you all touched on it, is just the idea of genuine kindness, just saying thank you for listening and sending a t-shirt perhaps, or just an old-fashioned email. And really lovely. Thank you so very, very much for being here.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you.
such a pleasure. A2IM Artist and Mom will be presenting a panel next week called the Distribution Derby at the same time, same place, 5 p.m. Eastern. The Distribution Derby will be a conversation on the different distribution models available to self-releasing artists. That event is also free, and I see one of my colleagues put the Eventbrite link in the chat, so thank you for that. A2IM Artist is presented by AdRev. Thanks to them. Thanks to our partner DistroKid, sponsor Sound Exchange, and thanks so much to Mom Shiragans for setting this up with us, for co-partnering on tonight's event to make the digital marketing panel possible. Of course, thanks to Dawn, Taylor, and Corey. Huge thanks to Marauder, Cecilia, and Will for producing the event, and always a huge, enormous thanks to my colleagues at Team A2IM who make absolutely everything possible. I'm so grateful. Everybody have a great week, have a great weekend, and we'll see you back here next Tuesday night at 5.